I'm going to be honest, this is a movie that I picked because I really needed a theatrical release to fill out the season. COVID hasn't been doing the show any favors, and who knows when things will pick up again.
Maybe we're only two people, but this is how things change.
The Courier follows the true story of Greville Wynne, a British businessman recruited by the Secret Service, aka MI6, to meet with Oleg Penkovsky, a Russian spy source, in the 60s. As the Cuban Missile Crisis ramps up, the lives of Wynne and Penkovsky become increasingly endangered, with the KGB growing increasingly wary of their activities. Director Dominic Cooke has had an extensive career in theater, whose first movie, On Chesil Beach, was released in 2017. The script was written by Tom O'Connor, who has only scribed two movies prior, Fire with Fire and The Hitman's Bodyguard. Having only seen one of these movies, and it being the complete opposite tone of The Courier, I'm surprised at how well he manages to go from one to the other. What you may find surprising is just how well the script is written. It's an intriguing Cold War drama, with strong performances from Benedict Cumberbatch and Merab Ninidze. The technical aspects are a bit dime a dozen, but you're so engrossed by what's going on that you don't care if the cinematography is a little flat. Benedict Cumberbatch is one of those actors where it doesn't matter the quality of the script, he'll elevate it to its highest form. He does it again here, portraying an everyman in Cold War Britain, just living out a humble life, only to be approached with a dangerous task. Even though he's saddled with a monumental burden, he doesn't try and portray Greville Wynne as anything more than a simple businessman caught in this deadly game of chess. Cumberbatch's performance carries a stoic face, but it doesn't completely abandon emotion. There's laughter, panic, concern, triumph, as Wynne navigates the cold iron land of Soviet Russia, both metaphorically and literally. Cumberbatch has an amazing screen counterpart and partner in Merab Ninidze, who plays Oleg Penkovsky. Ninidze gives a commanding performance, a man who fully knows the consequence of what will happen but is striving to stop the world from blowing up.
К чему ведет предательство?
What I appreciate about this movie is that it doesn't necessarily amp things up for dramatic effect, at least not to the point of unbelievability. There are no big blowout arguments, no dramatic escapes with cliche music choices, no attempts of making Wynne into some untapped action hero. Tom O'Connor's script knows exactly what it's talking about, and doesn't try to spice things up for a thrill. The true story itself is thrilling enough. The other side of that coin is that you get a feel for what it means to do actual spy work. Nobody gets to shoot bad guys or sneak into heavily restricted areas. It's dry, monotonous work, with the occasional reminder that our protagonist is in hostile territory. Don't get me wrong, whenever Wynne goes over to Moscow, the danger feels real. Here's a little history lesson. From around 1955 to 1964, the USSR began easing off its censorship and more repressing laws. This was due to Nikita Khrushchev's policies of de-Stalinization and peaceful coexistence with other nations. The time period is referred to as the Khrushchev Thaw. It included motions such as decentralization, authority over industry, and the arts to become more liberal. That's small L liberal. Khrushchev also believed that allowing Soviet citizens to see Western achievements wouldn't discourage them, but rather inspire them to match those standards. The Courier takes place around the middle of the Khrushchev Thaw. Sure, they were on the path to becoming a freer society, but Gorbachev's policy of glasnost, or openness, was still decades away. For all intents and purposes, the USSR was a very oppressive place to live. Stalin and his reign of terror may have ended, but the gulags were still open. There's a reason it was called a thaw, and not a melt. The country still treated any and all foreigners as potential infiltrators, keeping vigorous security checkpoints to trip up any espionage. Even if Wynne wasn't doing covert work for MI6, you'd still feel nervous about him entering the country. It's a type of movie that seems to be on the way out nowadays. Spy stories that are more about actual espionage and stealing secrets. Movies like Argo, Bridge of Spies, and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Now, there's nothing wrong with the James Bond and Mission Impossible spy flicks, where it's more about the action, but I appreciate a good old-fashioned drama that details the dangers of sneaking about and not getting caught. If I have one complaint about the movie, it's that there's nothing visually striking about it. There wasn't a moment or a shot choice where I felt that the movie was trying to really differentiate itself from other movies in the genre. Cinematography was done by Sean Bobbitt, who has worked on a number of good movies where the camera work and framing has been a highlight, so it was surprising to see that nothing about this one stood out. While it does treat the subject in a matter-of-fact manner, it's still rather uninspired in looks. The color grading is consistent across the board, giving both the United Kingdom and the Soviet Union a grayish, sterile feeling. It's a reflection of the era, when nuclear tensions were getting higher, and the future seemed drab and dismal. The color palette manages to capture that in a way without making one seem darker than the other.
Mr. Win? Пройдемте с нами.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
He said, come with us, Mr. Win.
Why, what's going on? I don't understand.
Mr. Win, please.
The final segment sees Win being imprisoned and tortured, but he maintains his innocence for several months. However, he receives some good news from his wife, that the Soviets have removed their missiles from Cuba.
It's all fine.
No more about this.
Meeting Penkovsky one last time, they share a stoic yet emotional climatic moment. Win is released and returns to the UK in April of 1964, though Penkovsky is executed and buried in an unmarked grave.
Maybe we're only two people. But this is how things change.
A happy and a sad ending all at once. The relief that Win returned home and continued living his life is contrasted with Penkovsky being killed and his burial location unknown. Tragic, yes, but real-life stories don't always have a happy ending for everyone involved. Before we cut to credits, we get some footage of the real Greville Win.
Will you travel in East Europe again?
Oh, now that is quite a question which I can't answer today.
The Courier is a fairly straightforward recount of a thrilling true story, carried by strong lead performances and solid direction, even if, visually, it doesn't do quite enough to make itself special. I think if Cold War espionage movies are your jam, you'll get a kick out of it. If you're someone who likes to learn more about obscure stories of the time period, this will be up your alley. However, if you're looking for the next great period piece, you might be left unfulfilled. Tom O'Connor definitely has a future as a writer for dramatic features, especially ones based on true stories. And I think if he keeps up the pace, he may soon find himself with an Oscar in his hand. Even though there's nothing about it that truly demands that it be seen in a movie theater, I will say it is certainly worth checking out in one. Alright, that's my review of The Courier. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Or what's a really good Cold War spy movie that you enjoy? Bridge of Spies is a movie that I thought was really good, and I might talk about it on the other channel someday. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, this is the Canadian Movie Buff saying I hope you had a fantastic weekend at the movies. Next time, we're going to look at an animated feature. Something that should have been great, but was honestly kind of mid.